Hi, and welcome to another and probably one of the last few events happening for VelociCode. How to submit. Today I will be talking about how you submit your project to DevPost, some tips and tricks, and a little bit about the judging process. We'll dive right in here just momentarily, but some quick notes. I'd like to mention, if you're not already in on the action, and you're on the how to submit page, you know, maybe now's the time to jump in. Excited for you to participate. Excited for you to even be watching this back later on how to know how to submit to this fun hackathon we've been having all month. So jump right in. It's still available. You still have a full week, almost a full week, 5 days. You have until June 27th, Friday, where we will also be hosting a builders night. But I'll send out some reminders at the end of this. I also have a quick shout out to becoming an ACM San Antonio full member. We have our membership at a discount right now at 50% off until June 30th. So if that's something you're interested in, that leaves you at $25 for the year. That gets you access to some of the resources we have available as a local chapter here in San Antonio, as well as access to the national network if you have questions there as well. But yeah, what's going on today? I kind of gave a little short intro about what's happening, but a little bit of how to submit to DevPost, judging criteria, and a little bit of tips for the showcase. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them in chat while we're live here, or ping me Zach Attack in the GGS or DevSA Discord. I'm happy to answer any of them. If you also have any questions at any point that the Discord doesn't work for you, you can also reach out to our inbox at team@acmsa.org. That's team at acmsa.org. You can find all that information on that DevPost link at that first QR code that I showed you. So, jumping right into it, how to submit to DevPost. If you're not familiar with DevPost, DevPost is an online application or an online web app that we use to submit to pretty much all the hackathons. As an avid hackathon participant and organizer, I've used it for roughly the past 5 or 6 years. An exciting tool to use, pretty simple, but I like to break it down sometimes just so that we get into it. So, some more things we will be doing in this section on how to submit to DevPost is how to upload your project and what to do, completing your DevPost submission, and what to do in a crunch. So, while there are two ways that we recommend uploading your project for this event for VelociCode, GitHub and each.io are both valid ways to submit your project. We just need access to be able to see either the code base or the running project. You can upload them anyway. If you use GitHub, make sure you write out a README and stuff like that on how to do it. And each.io, make sure you put up all the download files so that somebody can play your game as well. But we're going to go the GitHub way. But a good way to start that off is going by to github.com/new. That's going to get you access to creating a new repository. And that's where we'll kick off this little tutorial. So I've outlined a lot of things here. Some big things to call out is make sure when you're creating a new repository, make sure you name it. You can call it VelociCode. You can call it whatever is available. I see it recommended me Crispy Winter. So maybe that's some hints. And your biggest key point on this first setup before you create the repo is to make it public. Sometimes this step is missed. And if you make it private as a judge or even as an organizer, I can't come view it later. And we will be continuing on. And final things, once you get that named and such, make sure you click Create Repository. And then you're presented with this page. This is a page on GitHub that if you're familiar with version control, you're all too familiar with. But we're going to be keeping it easy. We're not using command line or terminal or anything. So we'll just be dropping our files right here. So you'll click this link where it says upload an existing file. And then you can either drag and drop into this space and then choose your files. And then once you do that, you can commit your changes. And so committing your changes will take you to this page. Now you have an official repository. The reason why I call it out with an arrow here is if you need to add more files, that's no worries. Okay. You can go up there to add file button next to the big bright green code button and just add more files that way. If you're aware of how to use GitHub, use it the traditional way. You can use a CLI, upload your project. I know there's a bunch of other ways you can do this too. Like our sponsor, Diversion, if you're in the Unreal world, that's a version control manager, and you can upload your project that way. So, like I said, GitHub and each.io are just one of the many ways you can upload your project so that you can share it with us and share it with the organizers, share it with the community, and be valid to enter into VelociCode. So that's a quick way on how to upload. If you have any questions, let me know. Additionally, we're going to jump right over to DevPost. DevPost is definitely the bigger contender here. So there's a couple ways you can get into it. You can see there's multiple start project, buttons. You can start in your overview page here. You can also click start project here. This bar lives every time, even after you make one project. But just know that when you're creating a project, if you already have a project here, make sure you're editing that one because you're only allowed one submission per person um, at this event. So no duplicate submissions. You can't submit for more than one team, but you can qualify for one team. Got it? So you'll click Start Project right here. And then here's the first page. If you are working with a team, maybe one's a dev and one's been the designer for your project, this is a great time to know that. Make sure everyone is on DevPost. If you're solo, you can skip this step. They make it pretty easy to add, but make sure everyone that's on the team is registered to VelociCode. And so when you come in here, you can either invite teams through email, so you can invite right here, or you can send them this invite link. I would recommend the invite link. It's a little bit easier. But whichever works, if you already know their email, shoot it off. But like I said, if you're solo, you can skip this. Otherwise, save and continue. Now you have a quick project overview. This will be the thing in the project gallery that you can see up here that will be opened up after the day of submission. We might open it up early. I haven't decided yet, but most likely we'll be opening it up once submission closes, so that nobody can't, scope out or snipe the end of that stuff there. But this is where you'll be putting, your project name and your elevator pitch. So as you can see over here, they've done a pretty good job at showing you a little example of what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to be NS egg, and then we're going to welcome aboard the NS egg. NS, if you didn't know, nuclear sub. So excited for that one. Once you're done with that, click Save and Continue. After that is the primary, bread and butter of this. You're gonna have the project story, some details to add about this, and the only reason why I really recommend filling this out, as at least from my experience, it's been helpful in tiebreakers when judges can't, decide on, from the short amount of time they get to see your project, who's who between each one. The project story and the information you fill out here, whether or not it's how much you contributed, whether or not it's the difficulties you ran into, or the new things you tried, or the things you created. This is a good spot to use this. And this is where I recommend getting your project started early. You can get through this process and get all the way up to project details, and you don't have everything yet. You can actually go ahead and finish out like just a couple liners in here, and you can actually go ahead and click, save as draft. You don't have to submit it just yet, but make sure that it's submitted, before the end of June 27th at 11:59 p.m. Because that will make sure that you're at least submitted. You can always go back and edit it, so no stress on there, not being able to edit. So once you fill that out a little bit, know that there's a great place to add, what languages and tools you use. You can add your try it out link. So if you're using a combination of GitHub and each.io, you can put your each.io link here. You can also add more links, but these are not required, but the languages are required. This is where I also recommend, at least slapping some kind of picture. I picked a little carton egg box here, or a little ship, and give it a little short description, because when people are viewing the project gallery, these pictures will show up. So whether or not it's of gameplay, whether or not it's of stills, you can even, I believe you can even upload videos. I might be wrong. Oh, you can upload GIFs. So you can upload GIFs here, and you can click Save and Continue on that. So final steps, additional links, this is required. This is where the steps that we just did with GitHub, you will be coming and placing that link in here. If you didn't do GitHub, that's totally fine. You can put the each.io in here, but you do have to put a link in here, and so that the judges can review and the organizers can validate your project. And just some quick final reminders. I wrote these out just to make sure your project includes descriptions, how you use it, is there good visuals, and it was all your teammates listed. So over here, it'll show you a quick little example of what's going on. You can see I have this little card here for myself because I haven't saved it yet. And then you can see myself on here as a team. If I had other team members on here, they'd be listed right below here. And once you've confirmed all that, agree to the terms and conditions of submitting on DevPost and submit your project. Submitting your project does not mean it means you are finalized in there, but does not mean you can't go back and edit it. Once you submit it, you can go back and edit it up until the time of our deadline of June 27th at 11:59 p.m. And that's a big piece here. I like to mention that because like the earlier you start it, the better it looks. Whether or not that's photos, whether or
Sorry,
not that's
Zachariah. I couldn't find that in your home.
oh my gosh, whether or not that's starting early or you're crunching because you want to spend the last bit of dev time you can, so that the dev post is done. Other piece that we're requiring is if you want to, and this is finalizing it, submit at our showcase. So while you can submit to DevPost and not submit for a prize, you can always do that. But to submit to be able to set up at our space for the showcase at UTSM MPB on Saturday, I would need you to complete this QR code. I know it's just a QR code right now. I will be adding it to the description below of the YouTube video that's happening. And I'll also be sharing this in the Discords after this chat today. So that was kind of it on how to submit to DevPost. Pretty super straight and simple. Like I said, if you have any questions, reach out to me. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the judging process. This is the part that always makes a lot of people nervous, and I don't want it to. It's supposed to be fun. It's like a quick like elevator pitch, but let's kind of dive into it real quick. So the full judging process is, I think I've outlined it in like 5 or 6 steps, but we will be using science fair style judging. What does that mean? Is that you and your team will get a space at a table, whether or not whatever equipment you bring, your computers, your monitors, something to interact with, your game controllers, whatever it might be. Bring it, set it up so that while you're demoing it, the judges can interact, right, or see what's happening. And that leads me into the time limit. Max time between 3 to 5 minutes. When we are doing the showcase, we only have 2.5 hours. That's going to include opening remarks. That's going to include the judging time. That's going to include judging deliberation, and that's also going to include prize recipients, like announcing prizes, right? So make sure you keep your pitch 3 to 5 minutes long, and then you'll have a couple minutes extra for questions from the judges or for yourself. But make sure you leave that and count for that time. Definitely practice ahead of time. When I say seen by at least 3 judges, my plan is to have a minimum 3 judges for y'all this weekend. That includes creations or people who have got backgrounds in game development, backgrounds in corporate experience, backgrounds in investing in games, all that kind of stuff. Judges will be announced pretty soon, so I'm excited to say that. But there's some familiar faces you'll see for that judging process. Continuing on, judges' deliberation time. This is a key piece in here, and the reason why we try to keep to the time. When I mentioned, back to filling out your dev post so that we can make those decisions on tiebreakers. But judge deliberation time is after they've viewed everyone, they've written down their notes, and they come into a separate part of the building or a separate space, and they discuss who's going to win. And we'll talk about the prize categories or judging criteria and categories in just a moment. But that's a crucial time where you kind of you're a little bit in limbo. But as much time as you give them to deliberate, the better the decisions might be, and excited to see what comes out of them. But that also leads to right after deliberation happens, that's where results and prizes happen. So results and prizes are an exciting thing to have. And as soon as deliberation is done, I try to rock it out so that we're not there for too long. So just a final reminder in there, submit for the showcase. That includes your dev post submission. That includes a QR code that I have created, that I will be sending out to y'all, and so that you can register for your space to submit. So I'm excited for that. Okay, now the critical part, judging criteria. Judging criteria, we have picked 5 categories. There are creativity, execution, theme utilization, technical skill, and presentation. What does that mean? Creativity is the idea unique or imaginative? Does it feel fresh or unexpected? Right? Using our theme of egg, how did you incorporate that? Right? Jumping down to execution, like how well was the project implemented, given the time scope, right? While you're presenting, you might mention, hey, I didn't find out about this event until a week ago, right? And this is everything you did in a week. But maybe you were there from kickoff time, right? And you've had all month, right, to build all of this stuff. And so letting people know what you did within that scope is also pretty crucial to judging on how much was created, right? Especially with team and theme utilization. So based on the announced theme, egg, how well is it incorporated into the project? This is a pretty key piece in here. If you don't submit to the theme piece, or well, if you didn't use the theme, kind of out of luck. You do need to use the theme. That's the requirement of the event. But then jumping down to technical skill, are there impressive mechanics, clever code, or complex systems under the hood? This is really fun things to call out. Maybe you come to VelociCode to just work on a specific skill set that you've been trying to grow, whether or not, it's been physics based, whether or not it's been design based, whether or not it's just been, project oriented based. It could be a bunch of different things. While you have a completed project, sometimes it's helpful to focus in on like what you actually built more complexly, right? If my example was I was dropping an egg from the top of a building in my game, right? And I had to hit a target, right? And maybe part of that included, some aerodynamics through the air and then like thinking about the true gravity. And I made my own physics engine. Like I could spend the time talking about that. And sometimes that's pretty cool because then it shows off the extra things you were learning for this event. And then finally, presentation again. Is the project page put well together? Is there screenshots, descriptions? How is your presentation during the showcase? All of this stuff. While I don't have percentages on every part of them, know that presentation is definitely a smaller part of that, but it is a pretty key piece in understanding and how you present your project as well. So prize categories. This is the first announcement. Ansley and I have been thinking about this a lot, and we are working diligently to get you your prizes, which we will hopefully be announcing this week. With my birthday being tomorrow, we'll see if we get that to you Tuesday. But right now, it's first and second place. We also have best use of theme, so using the egg theme, and then crowd favorite. More to be discussed about crowd favorite on the day of, but expect that you can most likely be able to use DevPost to kind of wean your way to getting crowd favorite. Continuing on, last and final section, something I always like to talk about and share to anybody submitting to DevPost, and has been pretty crucial to me when I was submitting to DevPost, are tips and tricks. So questions that I just brought up for the criteria, like these are good questions to ask yourself. Like, what were your initial ideas, right? Like, did you explain that during your presentation? Was your initial ideas like, the egg drop from the building, or maybe it was like an egg cannon, or maybe you were the egg and you were trying to move along that kind of path and, create your own like action adventure. Maybe it's an RPG. Who knows? Good things to explain. If you had more time, what else would you have done? This is a pretty crucial one, and always a big thing to show that you would like to continue developing on it. Is if you had more time, right? If I had more time, maybe I would have created more levels. Maybe I would have added more to the story. All this kind of stuff. It definitely helps show your perspective on how you were thinking about this project. Also, how did you approach the development process? Did you take after our recent speakers and break down the full criteria to just build a prototype? Did you just jump straight in and you're like, I just want to dev something and create it, right? What was your approach to this situation? Also, like I heavily mentioned, is the time. Practice 3 to 5 minute time limit. It is a pitch, right? It's a pitch of why they should like your project, how you did it, why you did it, and why they should enjoy it, right? It's definitely an elevator pitch. So make sure you treat it like that. Hit all the concise points that you want to hit and explain concisely and leave time for questions because that'll be your big key contributor to becoming memorable by the judges. The judges like conversation, but the judges also like being wowed, right? And so great experiences for all kinds of things to happen. Also, bring a pre recorded demo or an easy way to interact with your project. I recommend this because, as I mentioned, you only have 3 to 5 minutes. That 3 to 5 minutes can be used, for tons of different things. And whether or not whatever you do to present, there's no wrong way. There's no wrong way. Okay. But from my experience, for I'd almost say being a seasoned hackathon experiencer, is either pre-record something or a simple part of the demo to interact with, right? So if that means, making a demo as part of your game, maybe that's a good example. Or trying to show off this key like piece in here, and while the video plays in the background, you're going to talk about it, right? So definitely good things to keep an eye on, good things to think about, and good things to present over. Okay. Well, I think that was pretty much everything. And if you have any questions for about tips or questions about moving, questions about what's going to happen in this event, I'm hoping to from some of our presenters this Saturday that I will break down some of the videos and share them off with y'all and throughout this week. While they won't be live interacting, I would like to be able to share that stuff with y'all. But with that being said, I didn't think today was going to take too long. So thank you for joining us. And if you have any feedback, please share it. This QR code's here. If it can't use a QR code, that's totally fine. But go leave us feedback on the Luma event or the Meetup event and let me know how I did today. But to wrap us up, thank you to our partners, Diversion, UTSA's Student Success Center for the UC, TechBlock, ATC, DevSA, and the Unreal Engine org in San Antonio. But I will stop talking. If you have any questions, don't forget to register for DevPost. Don't forget to show, if you're presenting, show the showcase registration. Also, don't forget to follow us on Luma and all of GGS information. And if you have any questions about becoming an ACM member or how to submit or what's happening this week with VelociCode, hit us up in Discord. Hit us up at team at acmsa.org. But with that being said, I hope y'all have a great Sunday. And thanks for coming to my quick talk. Later, y'all.